Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Richard, DM Bloodworth, and today's video, as you can see by the title, is ShadowDark Shines a Torch at page 2. This is my final report of page 2. Now, there are hundreds of great games being run there at the convention. But for me, this year's convention was all about ShadowDark. I was already preset to run 3 different sessions of ShadowDark at page 2 before I even had known that Kelsey Dion was going to be there. So when I found out that she was going to be there as well, I was absolutely elated, and I knew that this was going to become the year of ShadowDark for me for certain. Last year, 2024, page 1, it was all about meeting Frank Metzner and playing in his game and seeing all his seminars and everything that I could possibly do. And I achieved that. And so this year, again, I have the opportunity to meet her and to run her game. And let me just kind of walk you through my whole weekend surrounding ShadowDark. So I go there, I get there really early. I'm an Army veteran. I'm so used to getting everywhere early. It's almost like a mental condition. So I got at the hotel at 2 o'clock, and I went in to check into my hotel room. And around 5:30 it was going to be the start of the special guest, which I was one, and I super appreciate that, Ron, for inviting me there as a special guest. So it was a special guest, the staff assistants for the convention itself, and gold badge holders. And so that was starting at 5:30. So around 5 o'clock, I headed down to the main lobby, and I see all of these, quite frankly, luminaries of the of the industry, of YouTube, of just all of these people that are very well known throughout the tabletop role-playing hobby on YouTube. So I'm waiting, and I see that Kelsey is talking to Eric Tenkar, and I started talking to Professor Dungeon Master, and we had a very nice discussion. He and I, and we're talking about several things, and I was looking forward to seeing him again throughout the weekend as well, because I brought Deathbringer and I wanted him to sign that. And so I then, when I saw the opportunity, and I had finished our conversation with Professor Dungeon Master, I just took a few steps over, and Kelsey noticed me, and she was like, DMB. So I was like, oh, it's so nice to meet you, and I was just floored that she knew me. Now, I've known she's been on my channel. She's watched my channel and the content that I put out there for ShadowDark. And so we were talking. I told her, so nice to meet you. I'm running your game all weekend long. I'm running it 3 times. And she was super excited. And I said, I'm running it tonight. And she said, I'll definitely pass by your table. And then she digs into her pocket or whatever, and she brings out this little plastic bag with these ShadowDark stickers. And she goes, look, you're going to be the first person to receive one of these. So I was super excited about it. And then I was like, I don't know where I'm going to put it, because I don't want to put it in the book. I might put it in my copy of the of the ShadowDark book, just over the regular label of ShadowDark, because she signed that book on the white page, so I can't put it there. But it's not like I'm ever going to part with the book anyway, so it'll be fine. I'll make it a little bit more personalized to myself. But anyway, so we go into dinner and meet other people that are in there and whatnot, and then I start running my game. Now, the first game I'm running for the convention, all right, and I'm going to switch views here. And let's see. Sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button. The first game I was running was the Slumbering City. All right, and this is written by Tom Wilson. And two things I want to point out about this. First of all, this is an awesome adventure. I've run this a number of times, probably about 5 times at conventions. The only convention I don't run this at is at ShireCon, because that's Tom Wilson's con, and I really don't want to run his game at his con. So, or his adventure, I should say, at his con. Although maybe I probably will this upcoming year. But so I have this whole setup. I'm ready to roll, and then she comes up to my table, and again, I brought both of my books now to the table because I like to have the books on the table for display for the players and passersby. And the table was all set up, and she comes over, and I asked her one question. I said, now I have 2 of the books, right? And one of these I'm going to give to my niece. And so whichever one you decide my niece will get, that's the one that I want you to assign to her, and you're going to give it to her. And she was like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't make that decision. I said, no, whatever one you choose. I knew she was going to go with this one. So she wrote out a very nice passage. All right, to my niece here. Alex, you have many torches to light, many dice to roll, and many adventures to go on. Journey well. All right, and then mine, she signed, Richard, DMB. I'm so happy I got to meet you at Page 2025. You are the champion of ShadowDark. Many happy games. And just, I'm so happy to be a champion of ShadowDark, because it is, you know, I didn't need the Ennies to tell me that this was the game of the year. All right. You know, that was just verification of what I was always thinking anyway. So we ran through the Slumbering City. That first night went absolutely, you know, phenomenal. And then the next day, and by the way, I'm just going to give a shout out by first name of the players that were in that first game. So the Slumbering City, I'm giving a shout out to Chuck, John, Jason, David, Matthew, and Michael. You guys played great. You guys were the first group to get out of the you were the first group to get out of the adventure with the eye of the Leviathan. So they killed the final boss, and the magic aura of the ancient city, the Slumbering City, had been broken, and then they were able to walk out of the place with the gemstone. And again, they were the first group to do it. And I'm pretty sure none of them died either. So now I'm trying to remember, because I conflate the different times. But anyway, they were the first to get out with the gemstone out of like 5 or 6 groups. So great time. The second game that I ran was also a Tom Wilson, and that was A War in the Valley. So this is another adventure, very, very different. It's there are 3 rival groups that the players are going to encounter in this valley. There is a kobold lair that had been historically there. There are invading goblins, and then there's this mysterious cult that is also in there. I'm not going to blow the whole adventure, you know, for you here, but they got through a good portion of the adventure. The adventure, this is the first time that I'm running it at a convention, so I was of course going to truncate it a little bit and slip here and there, and they ended up killing 2 of the main bosses and kind of discovering what was going on, and thwarted those plans. And so that was really a good way for it to conclude, because they did leave the adventure with a good amount of treasure, a great experience, you know, as the players. None of their characters died either, and they, you know, and I had a good sense of, we've accomplished this. We discovered what was going on. We killed the two bosses, the humanoid bosses that were involved. Excuse me. And they discovered a secret that I'm not going to blow for you. And they also they also killed another monster, which was a boss monster in the very beginning of the adventure. And they figured out how to lure it and what its weaknesses were as well. So so they accomplished it. The adventure ran the full 3.5 hours or so, and completion. It's very important at a convention that your game session has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You want to close out your adventure, even if you have to go a little bit over time. Yeah, as long as you're not interfering with someone else's game, you just have to learn how to pace those things to make sure that you basically land the ending for your players at the table. Otherwise, it's going to be an empty experience. So that was our second game. And I'm going to give a shout out again to those individuals. So shout out to Jeremy, Kevin, John, Cameron, Nicholas. Cameron and Nicholas are husband and wife, and then Robert. So great gaming with you. I really enjoyed it. You guys did a great job of running through this game session. This game session I'm seeing now ran from 1 p.m. to 4:50, and it used pretty much every bit of that 3 hours and 50 minutes or so. Maybe came up a little bit short, but you wrapped it up, and so that was a great job doing that. My final game was Saturday night, and that's the group that I show on the front page. And this is not to take away from any of the other groups that I had, but this is the adventure that that I had written, and I'm going to talk about that, all right, in a moment. So this is the group here, and the reason why you see them, all right, and some of you might notice that the second gentleman over here on the left in the maroon shirt is J. Scott Garibay. So J. Scott Garibay, I had played with him earlier on in a game with Nerdarchist Ted, Zoo Mafia, and then I invited Scott to come to my table and and play in my game, and I was very happy to have him there. He was a great player. Now, the players with their thumbs up are the player characters who survived. All four in the middle with their thumbs down those are the four players who whose characters died in the second to last scene of the adventure. You can still see that they have smiling faces. It was a really great adventure. They did a phenomenal job. They were the first group, and this is now like the sixth or seventh time that I've run this adventure. The first 4 times it was written for Conan 2D20, and they were the third group to go through as the adventure was written for ShadowDark and modified for ShadowDark. And I'm going to talk about those modifications now, and I will give their names as a shout out when we're done, or actually I'll do that right now. So here is the shout out to them, first names only. So Jason, Tama, husband and wife, John, Brian, Stephen, James, and J. Scott, who was not on the listing, so he was an invitee. All right, so he was my special guest. All right, to my table. So now let me talk about this particular game that I had written. So I'm going to switch gears here, or scenes. So as you can see, the layout here is that it is written on index cards. And I did this conversion because I wanted to be able to have a visual like a web, like a story web, that the players can see what they had done. And the one change I made here in doing that display is that if the players had a choice, a three-pronged choice, and the way that this really came up the first time was there was a mountain a series of mountains that they had to climb. There was a medium-sized, a high-sized, and then a small-sized mountain, and they were kind of under a time pressure to try to catch up to a rival group that was 12 hours ahead of them. And so, using their skills, they had a ranger in the group, and so he was able to use his awareness and his knowledge of topography and such, and he was able to tell that, hey, if we go this way, even though it's a tougher climb, it's going to give us a much better vantage point. And if we, make that climb uninhibited, and not slow down too much, we might even be able to catch up even faster, all right, and shorten their time. So I'm keeping a tracker, a pacing tracker, behind the screen. That's the only thing that they can't see behind the screen. All my rolls are in public, so I'm keeping that tracker ahead of them. And so there was basically 6 2-hour blocks that they would have opportunities to catch up or possibly slow back down again. So when they got up to the top of the mountain, they chose to go to the very top. Now they had some struggles getting up there, but really only 2 times. Excuse me, only 2 times did their players actually fall. And it wasn't very steep falls. So they get up to the very top, and then I thought, you know what? And this is the first time that I've done this. I said, well, they're on the very top of the mountain. It would be kind of cool for them to see what's on the other 2 lower positions that they potentially avoided. So they looked over to the lower side, all right, and the lower side, they could see that there was a pack of walls down there. And they looked over to the middle side, the medium size, and they could see over there that there was a cave, on a mound, and they just happened to catch a ice troll walking out of the cave. Excuse me. Still trying to get over the flu. That was the one bad point of page 2 for me. Sorry about that. So this is the first time that I let them see the images that were on both sides, of their position, and I think that really did help them visualize, 2 things. They got to see their advantages that they were receiving for doing what they were doing, and they also had to see that, they were making meaningful choices, and then when I calculated it up, they had gained 2 slots by making up that jump. So they actually picked up 4 hours of time, because having their advantage point up top would also show them the lowest or fastest decline to go to save up even more time. And so throughout the adventure, there were several instances where they had to make decisions of, do I go straight, do I go left, do I go right? And then when they went about them, they'd have challenges throughout, and sometimes those challenges were social interactions with the rival group when they eventually caught up to the rival group. They had early on social interactions, and then they had interactions with the wilderness space. They had various challenges in their travel, all right, and their exploration, because they were always looking for a better path to go to, all right. They get into their first combat, all right, which was with an ice or a remoras, right, so an ice worm, on a big frozen lake, and they are balancing being attacked by this creature, trying to maintain their footing on an ice lake. Fortunately for them, they were almost off the lake, so they were kind of closer to where the ice was going to get much more solid, and and have better footing. But the ice worm was breaking up that as well. So there was a lot of things going on. Now, when they look to the left and the right of them, after the battle was over, they can see well, I'm sorry, no, a little bit earlier, they could see off to the left, I believe it was, that they could see that there was an ice giant or frost giant foraging. It was actually killing caribou off to there. So like, all right, we're glad we didn't take that path. And off to their right, they could see that there were many campfires. All right, and that was the Vanir war party that the other Azir, because these were Azir warriors, the player party, and one dwarf actually, and they could see that, or they were told that there was a large Vanir war party, and I glossed over that interaction they had with the Azir war party that was ahead of them because just forgot to mention it during this. It is unscripted, and but they had a great social action interaction with them that resulted in kind of like a truce. Like you're going to go your way, we'll go our way, but if you hear our horn, come to our aid. If we hear your horn, we'll come to your aid. The party decided we're not blowing any horn. We want to get to the shards of Ymir, without them if we possibly can. And they were probably thinking the same thing, but they weren't going to conflict with each other because the players made really good rolls in their interactions, but not the greatest rolls. All right, so they weren't getting 18s or 19s or 20s, but they were getting successes as well. So that's why it was kind of a neutral transaction of cooperation, let's say. They finally get to that final location, and second to last location, and there's an ice bridge, and that's where a lot of their issues came, and that's where 4 of their 7 players died, and it I had said on Scott's on J. Scott Garabay's channel, when he was talking about this game session, that his expression when the first player character fell to his death was priceless. He was like really shocked that it happened and happened so quickly. All right, because the way that it was set up was that, and I encouraged them, and I'm going to talk about luck tokens that I use for this. It's my own homebrew for it, just to give them, a greater cinematic action type style to this thing. Because again, this was written from Conan 2D20 that had a momentum system, so I kind of mirrored to a certain extent that system for this game, for this adventure. So the first guy falls off, and I tell him, like, he failed his roll, and he was rolling with advantage, and he failed. And then I said, well, if you spend 3 coins, you can re-roll with advantage again. All right, and so he spent the 3 coins, re-rolled, and failed again. All right, which basically meant that, if you rolled a critical failure, and then you failed a re-roll, or you failed your first roll, and then you re-rolled with advantage, and you still failed again, your character fell to his or her death. Now they also had a second, like a dexterity check. So first it was the first dexterity check, and then the second one, not to fall off. And so he fell. The next, his wife rolled next, and she failed the first. She spent the coins. She failed the second, and then she fell. And then the third was kind of like hanging on a ledge and everything, and he was in between falling. The fourth started to proceed forward, and he tacked down some rope, and but then unfortunately he fell. And then the third player, once again, he kind of just like made the decision, I'm just going to stand up and try to walk across this, and he failed his rolls, and he fell. So the 2 players were like kind of, the 2 dead players now are kind of bantering with each other. It was like, you just wanted to die. He was like, you had all these things in front of you. It was so funny, and it was just like the perfect example of how players, players just they will do what want their characters to do. And you as a game master, you have to encourage that, and you hold them to the consequences of their actions. And so when it was just the 3 players left, it was like, oh wow, what are we going to do now? I said, well, all 3 of you are on the other side. And so they decide we're going to go inside this final cave. And I showed them the picture, and everyone was in awe. I showed it to everybody. This is what you kind of see. And then they encountered the boss, and they decide, I'm not going to, fortunately, the big boss started coming out as this monstrous Yeti-like creature. You will kind of see the picture of it down there. It's not the same one that's on the cover. It's this other more Yeti-like beast. And when I see the picture, I'm sitting there and I'm hoping that they get the sense, just from the picture alone, that this is not a battle that they can win. And so they decided, all right, we're not going to try to fight this thing. And so I gave them an opportunity. I basically said, you're going to run out of this place before the creature really notices you, and you will have each one opportunity, all right, using your final coins to roll with advantage, because I think they had just enough that each of them would be able to roll to it with advantage. And if they hit an 18 or higher, they would be able to grab a shard on their way out the door. The first player rolled, failed. Second player roll, failed. The third player rolling with advantage rolled a natural 20, and he got a shard on the way out. And then I showed them the last picture of seeing just how they went down a different slope, and they can see just like open country going back to civilization. And then I read the epilogue to them, and I informed all of them at the table. You were the first group out of 7 that ever got out of there with a shard. All right, and so that was, the perfect ending. Now this session only lasted 2 hours and 45 minutes or so out of a 3-hour, block, because of the decisions that they made. They managed to avoid 2 major combats that would have taken a lot of time, and they didn't take any combats additional that they didn't have to. They utilized their coins throughout. They were rolling really well until those times that they had to make the saving throws on the ice bridge, and they just did a phenomenal job. So let me just show you the final screen here, so you can kind of see what it like. Well, actually, it's right there. I'm sorry. So that's kind of what the table looked like. With all the cards. I was missing one card, the Remoraz card, and then I had to fix. I fixed some of the mechanics throughout. So this is now finally written. The other thing that I did was, like I said, I did a homebrew for luck tokens, and basically it's just every player character starts with 1. They have a maximum pool of 5 in their personal pool. If they roll an 18, 19, or 20, they gain a new coin for themselves. And if they roll a 20, they gain a second coin for the pool. Any player can pull from the pool if they don't have enough coins in their thing. Once the pool can only hold 3 coins for every player at the table. And so that means that they had 6 players, so the most that they could have was, was it 18? I think I have to tone that down to 3 per player in the group for the thing. Originally I had it as 5, so maybe they could have had 30 in that run. I made a few more tweaks based on their experience here. And then one LP, so 1 coin or token, they rolled with advantage, or rolled for attack damage with advantage. 2 could re-roll 1 die. 3 could re-roll with advantage, either an action or damage. 4, re-roll with advantage, action, or maximum damage. All right, so they can spend 4 coins to get that maximum damage. and then 5 coins, which is the most that you could spend, is an automatic critical success, which puts a coin back in the player and in the pool itself, and maximum damage. All right, so it's a combining of both. All right, so that's great for a final last Hail Mary attack or something along that. Or it's great to save yourself from falling to your death on the, the ice bridge, for instance. So it was just such a phenomenal experience throughout the entire event. Met some really great people. Now, final stats that I was looking at for ShadowDark at page 2, there were 21 game sessions. All right, so potentially, now I ran 3 game sessions, so there weren't 21 game masters. I'm sure some people had doubled up, but there were certainly probably more than 15 game masters. There were at least 134 players who either played ShadowDark for the first time or at least had an opportunity to play ShadowDark at the convention. So this was a phenomenal showing for ShadowDark. Now, 2 last points. All right, so in my conversations with Scott on his channel, on his video on the subject, was that he was talking about how my game session was set in the Hyborian Age. As you can see, there's the map of the Hyborian Age on the thing, and I use that setting because that is the same setting from Tom Wilson's The Slumbering City. It's set in the world of Conan the Barbarian, or Conan the Cimmerian, whichever you choose. And so ShadowDark does not have a setting designated for itself, at least not yet. Hopefully someday she gets around to doing that. But it doesn't have a setting, so it is setting agnostic, and it works well in all of those. Now, all I did was, I looked at what Tom Wilson did with his character, because he created a Cimmerian Conan-esque character, and the class is barbarian. So what I started doing was I started looking at, because I'm very, very familiar with, Conan, Robert E. Howard's Conan and the age, the age of Hyboria. And, as you can see behind me, I'm a big, big fan. And so I started thinking about creating character classes, much in the same line as that would have, various, cultural features that make them distinct. So, I've been working on like Azir and Azir and Vanir raiders, and what kind of skill bonuses would they have being specifically raiders. Now, if they're just barbarians, warriors, they would have the same as what Tom already created. So, it is a very, very easy system to run. It's a very, very easy system to play, and it's an easy system to write for. So, this is my opportunity, I think, to take some of the adventures that I'm thinking about writing and putting them to ShadowDark, and then publishing them under that. My publishing stumbling block is twofold. Number one, this particular adventure is on index cards. I'm not exactly sure how I would format that. The second issue that I have is that, the art I pretty much pulled all from the internet. So for me, having to hire an artist, which I could do, I guess, in order to do it, but the number of art pieces that I would need for this project is pretty, pretty extensive. I think there's probably about 15 or so different plates that I would have to have done. Let me see if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, actually 17, because I was missing one picture here. So I would need 17 pieces of art. Now maybe I could get away with just putting that map there because that map is public domain. So that's not an issue. But all the rest, I would have to, commission. So I would see they would most likely end up having to be black and white and not those full color images. So if I can publish this and get something, I do it in the one format and see how do I publish it to allow for players, or purchasers, let's say, be able to take it and cut it out and make index cards from it. Or have it formatted for index cards. I don't know if that's even possible on drive-through. The second thing is that I would have to have, if I am going with the index card format, that other parts of the adventure would still have to be on, on regular 8x10 like this, unless I converted this to a series of index cards as well, which is also possible. I could break that down and probably get it all consolidated into 2 separate cards. So that's probably something that I would do. And then there are no maps, so that's an only big, except for the one regional map that they get, there are no maps. So that's a really big plus because even the cave that they go into is really just a 2-compartment cave that they're going into. So you can do that all theater of the mind. I did not have the map laid out. That's why I did the picture map for them. You don't need a map of the wilderness area that they're going through if you're using a picture map, which is the other reason why I did that. So it was a really great event. I had a blast. I met so many incredible people. I had, 19 players in my games. So another 19 people I've never met before, never played a game with before. And so it was a phenomenal experience as far as that goes too. I finally hammered out my version of ShadowDark Shards of Ymir and pretty much finished it up and cleaned it up and have that ready to do something with it in the future. I certainly will be running this for quite some time. And I got my chance to meet Kelsey Dion and really enjoyed that, and all of the other individuals as well. And yeah, ShadowDark is going to be a mainstay for me for the next couple of conventions that I go through in 2024, 25. I'm in the wrong year now. 2025, and then I believe it is March 11th. Kelsey is launching her ShadowDark Kickstarter for the next 4 zines, for the next 3 Cursed Scrolls. So that would be Cursed Scrolls 4, 5, and 6. So be on the lookout on my channel for when that happens. I, of course, welcome Kelsey to come on this channel for an interview anytime she wants. It's an open door, and she can reach out to me. And and I would be thrilled to have her on. It would be so awesome. And as for everyone else out there, thanks for sharing this experience with me. I hope that you've enjoyed these videos from page 2. If you've never gone to a page 2 and you're anywhere near the East Coast and the Philadelphia area, it is a phenomenal convention. Just so many special guests and interesting people to play. Everyone there, every one of my players for sure were just great to meet and to run games with. The players that I played with, and I played in Zeb Cook's game, which was phenomenal. I played in Nerdarchy Ted's game, which was phenomenal. I played in Chuck Cumbo's game, which is Castles and Crusades. So I played in Oriental Adventures, Castles and Crusades, and Zoo Mafia. So those were all 3 great games that I played in. It was just a great experience. I think there was a 4th game. It's just slipping my mind right now. such a great experience. So I highly recommend the convention. And if you haven't started doing conventions, you know, definitely go out there. Take precautions when you're going to big conventions, right? Don't be like me. I should have gotten a flu shot before I went. I should have been doing hand sanitizer throughout the entire time. As much as I tried to wash my hands, I still ended up with the flu by Sunday afternoon. By the time I got home, I was already coughing. So yeah, take precautions when you're going to a convention, and and you should be fine. But anyway, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. And at a convention, my next convention will be the Central New York role-playing convention. That is in June 15, 16, 14, 15, something like that. Slipping my mind right now. And I will be there. I will be running 3 game systems there. I'll be running ShadowDark, my game adventure. I'll be running Fallout RPG, and I will be running Deadlands 2, an adventure that I'm writing. All 3 adventures next convention that I go to in June are all written by me. And then at ShireCon in September, I will be running Shards of Ymir, and then probably 2 other adventures that I'm writing myself. So thanks all for joining. Have a great rest of your weekend. And let me cut this off before I have a coughing fit again. Excuse me.